when I first installed the Torque Tech supercharger kit on this Bullitt, the fuel rail had a little bit of a clearance issue with the elbow on the supercharger. So you have the fuel line that comes out of the fender from the rear of the car, and it goes underneath the supercharger elbow. So here's the supercharger, here's the elbow and the intake, and you can see this is the fuel line. And you can see I've already clearanced it where I filed it down a little bit, but it was still lightly touching, and the last thing I want is a fuel leak. Before, it was pushing into that fuel hose and denting it in, and that will rub as you drive and vibrate, and it will cause problems and possibly a fire. So I decided to take off the whole elbow and intake and file that down and use a grinder on it and stuff. But I also remembered that I wanted to double check the spark plugs on the car, especially on the passenger side. I'd done the driver's side already and pre-gapped them, and the previous owner who had the car for just a short little while did put new plugs in the car, and he did a good job on the other side. They were all nice and tight. But I can only blame myself if I find that one of the plugs is loose and I shoot one out of the head from not having them torqued down correctly. So I wanted to remove the whole air intake and elbow anyway, and that's part of the job of changing the spark plugs anyway. So I thought I might as well pull them all out, check the gap on them, make sure everything's good. The car is running great. There are no issues, there's no misfires or anything, and so I just wanted to do all this and double check the torque on them anyway. So it was kind of difficult getting that air intake system out. Everything was unplugged, it was fine. It just has those little tabs in the bottom of the filter housing that stick into the body in the engine bay. But anyway, this is a Mac air intake, and it uses the 03 Cobra stock intake. So I really like cleaning underneath where the intake was. There's always little leaves and dust and debris and stuff in there, and using the shop vac with a straw like that can help get little tiny things out. So I like doing that, especially down in the spark plug holes. I did that. I was actually surprised when I was preparing an engine. It was a 2-valve GT engine to go in one of my Mustang GTs, and I had it on an engine stand, and I sprayed water on it and cleaned it, and I noticed that some water got down into the spark plug holes, and I used the shop vac on, full power straight on top of the hole, completely covered the spark plug hole, and it still wouldn't get the water out of the bottom of the spark plug hole where the plugs were sitting. So I got the straw, and then I got down in there and sucked it out. And actually I did power wash the engine on the Bullitt once, and even after it dried, they say you can drive the car around and it'll help evaporate all that water. I think it was the reason why I lost an ignition coil, is because it got wet and everything. So the straw is a good way to get rid of it. So got the plugs out. They look pretty good. You can see the timing marks on the ground strap there. They're in a pretty good place. I was making sure that none of them were melted or anything. 10 pounds of boost. It's really not a whole lot of boost on 91 octane. So that's all good. And I just wanted to check the gap. I did tighten them down just a little bit to 32. I had the other side like that, and they were really close. And mostly I just wanted to do that and make sure to file down these rims on the ignition coils because of the Torque Tech kit. It moves the fuel rails to a slightly different position, and it makes them hard to get in and out. So you can see here now with it filed, they come in and out very easily. So that looks a lot better. I didn't like how you'd have to loosen the fuel rail to get those out. So it's an easy fix just to file them down a little bit and make those work for the Torque Tech kit. The normal Mustang GT doesn't have that problem. But I did continue to pull the plugs out, and I wanted to check them all, make sure they're all okay. The car put down 520 rear wheel horsepower on the dyno, and that's with 10 pounds of boost. So I just want to make sure these plugs were okay. I don't know how much timing was in that tune, but the car has forged internals and it's tuned correctly. Air fuel ratio looks right. Everything looks good on it. So plugs look decent. At least there's no melted ground straps or broken off ground straps or anything. So the real reason I wanted to do all this today was to clearance this elbow some more. You can see where I've ground down on it right here. and I just wanted to take more material off so it wasn't rubbing against that fuel line. So I got the grinder out and I just took off a little at a time. It's aluminum, so it came off relatively easy, and I just kept taking some off and then fitting it on the car and going back and forth. I did get the masking tape and taped off the throttle body because you do not want to have any metal shavings going into the engine, and so I made sure to blow it all off too before I installed it on the car. So that went very nicely. I'm very happy with the clearance it has now. It's not rubbing that elbow at all, and with this angle it does look closer, but it definitely has more room and it's not touching. Before it was putting a divot in that fuel line. So that's the update for the Bullitt. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for more Mustang content.